Meet Big Ed. He has a tax-funded taste for children. Big Ed knows that the best grooming starts early. He has a plan for your preschoolers, a plan to gender confuse your grade schoolers. But if you think his grooming stops there, you have not been paying attention. Big Ed wants to liberate your daughters from old-fashioned ideas like, well, you already know. Big Ed has dorm rooms ready for you in prison buildings of learning, and professors standing by dedicated to grooming young adults in doubt and unbelief. After all, he is the gatekeeper of this brave new world, and if you want a job, you'll need to pay him with years of your life for a permission slip. Yeah, whatever. You think David paid Goliath for a certificate in giant management before those two squared off? Did Luther major in theses? Was George Washington summa cum laude in empire repellents, while Jefferson focused on ag with a minor in declarations? When the world needs saving, meaningful vocations abound for those who are truly prepared. And the truth is, despite Marxist advances, this is still America, and Big Ed is still a voluntary opt-in. So don't. Not at any level. Not preschool, not middle school, not college. It isn't complicated. When Big Ed offers you free candy, stay away. You'll thank us later. We know it's crazy, but run with us here. Men and women were created in the image of God. You don't need a government certificate of faux learning for personal validation or permission to work. You were born with divine permission to pursue knowledge and understanding, truth, goodness, and beauty. And at New St. Andrews College, we are committed to helping students do just that, to their fullest potential. In an age dominated by chaos, when learning is on a choke leash controlled by Big Ed and his many strange friends, ours is an education for outlaws, an education for men and women committed to building a beautiful and free society in the ruins of the Western world. When thinking is outlawed, only outlaws will think. Yes, Big Ed hates what we do, but his hatred brings us joy. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for outlaws. Mind, body, and soul.
Are all of our stories about wizards, superheroes, and space battles just childish entertainment? Or is it possible that there's a reason that these heroic stories of good versus evil are so attractive? Is it possible that what some call fantasy is actually a glimpse into reality? Epic stories that pull back the curtain and help us understand how God's world really is. The project of Reforming Nerddom is to answer these questions by exploring different elements of nerd culture, whether it's comics or video games or movies or books. And yes, we're Christians, so we're doing it from an unapologetically Christian perspective. We want to help Christians engage the world rightly by discovering what is true, good, and beautiful in these stories of courage, sacrifice, and redemption. This doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of ugliness and wickedness in nerddom that needs to be thrown onto the burn pile, but together we want to explore our favorite tales from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings and honor Christ by seeing how they reflect the true story, the greatest story ever told.
Oh, now it's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I forgot what I did during this time of season. It's like, oh yeah, it's all Messiah.
Now it's Christmas.
Yes. Did our Logos choir sing? They sung one part of this.
One Handel's Messiah.
Yeah.
Not this one.
Yeah.
But this is so.
I can't remember which. But it was great. You notice having professional sound at the Logos choir, at the Logos concert this year?
Well, it's also in a space that's.
Well, hold on. Don't take it away from
that professional sound.
Look, I'll call him Dr. Snell. He's not a doctor, but
I know. Aaron's awesome.
I was going to say.
Take it away from Aaron.
Well, no. He's got them kids sounding so good, you thought the sound was better. That's what I'm trying to say. He's been working them kids. They were fantastic.
Why are you giving the University of Idaho
All right,
credit?
Let's move on. Merry Christmas, y'all. Welcome to CrossPolitic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. It's always good to be with you. Pastor Toby, Chuck Knox, I'm the Water Boy, and we're excited to actually talk today, finally, about the subcommittee. We mentioned it on the show last week. Remember last Friday, our Testimony Friday.
Oh, yeah.
About the subcommittee, report on how COVID was handled by various actors, government actors, and everything. And but we're also particularly excited to have Dr. Ryan Cole on to talk about it.
Yeah.
When we talked about it, we just mentioned it on the show last week. We just basically said that the subcommittee report should have just said, CrossPolitic was right, Dr. Ryan Cole was right, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was right,
And all the conspiracy theorists were right.
That's right. That's right.
Apparently, yeah, but they didn't
go nearly far enough.
Do you find yourself turning on the news and feeling hopeless? Woke agendas, open borders, inflation, the list goes on. There's something you can do. Buy from companies that believe what you and I believe. We need to stick together now more than ever, and there has been one company willing to stand with you since 2012, Patriot Mobile. Is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the very best nationwide 4G and 5G coverage on all networks. In fact, they use the same towers as the major carriers. Patriot Mobile has service plans to fit any budget, and their 100% US-based customer support team provides exceptional customer support. More importantly, Patriot Mobile shares your values and supports organizations fighting for religious freedom, your constitutional rights, the sanctity of life, and our veteran and first responder heroes. So switch to Patriot Mobile today and get free activation with the offer code CrossPolitic. So when you go to active, you just get free activation?
Yeah,
if you do
free activation.
Use the code CrossPolitic.
Yeah.
Go to patriotmobile.com/CrossPolitic. Use promo code CrossPolitic.
And what's interesting about Patriot Mobile is they're the only cell phone company that can do Verizon towers and AT&T towers on the same device.
Yeah.
So if you're in like a rural area,
right,
but your city's on AT&T and your rural area's on Verizon.
Well, there was a number of years when my wife was on Verizon and I was on AT&T, and so depending on where we are, one of them would work. But hey, this is a solution.
Boom.
Yeah, boom. Dr. Ryan Cole is a board-certified pathologist and founded Cole Diagnostics in Boise, Idaho, where he serves as CEO and medical director, known for
He's not CEO anymore.
This is an old,
we need to update it.
Old bio.
We need to update it.
He used to be an amazing CEO and medical director. Known for his outspoken views during the COVID-19 pandemic,
right.
Dr. Cole challenged governmental policies on vaccines and treatments, sparking national controversy. His medical license was restricted in Washington, but recently reinstated, allowing him to continue his work serving on the Central District Health Board. Is that still, I don't know if that's accurate or not, advocacy for patient-centered care. Dr. Cole, thanks for coming on CrossPolitic, and you can correct everything I got wrong in your bio.
Yeah, well, thanks, Pastor Toby. I'm still a proud Idahoan and happy to still be living in Boise part of the time. I'm kind of on the road quite a bit, trying to still help America be healthy again, maha. And, really kind of moha, make ourselves healthy again. I think it starts with the individual and individual decisions. So I sold my lab over a year ago. So I'm now just consulting here and there. And I am on the Central District Health Board. Yes, Washington only restricted my license. They're still, putting me through all these hoops and legal games. Is what it is. Lawfare is lawfare.
Right.
I think we've seen it for what it is, and it's all over the world in different, very important positions. They try to make examples of us when we're truth tellers, but we never stop telling the truth, no matter what.
Man, always appreciate talking to you. Looking forward to today.
I got a question before we really get into to the meat of this. So you heard Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is nominated as an NIH director, and we've had a lot of politics guests actually get nominated in the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth,
right?
Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and so did you get the CrossPolitic bump?
Did I get the bump? Well, I can say I've gotten some very important phone calls from inside the transition team, and I've had several interviews and done the appropriate forms for vetting. So I know I'm on the chessboard, and I'm happy to serve if called upon. There's a lot of politics involved in it. My end goal from day one till they put me in the dirt nap will be to serve people and help where I can.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. I just don't know yet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, though, because it's actually encouraging, even even if you don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they're talking to you. I mean,
Yes.
That's
Yes.
think about the world we've been living in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do we have to?
Well, yeah. This is the theme of the show.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you think about the world we've been living in for the last, 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to think about. And the fact that we have an administration that's even interviewing and talking to people like
who stood up during COVID,
like Dr. Ryan Cole,
Yeah.
who at the cost of their reputation, their livelihood, their businesses said, no, guys, like I've got some questions. Like,
Yeah.
this is not adding up. That's huge.
Yeah.
And very, very encouraging.
You know, people have short memories. So I just want to kind of remind people again, it wasn't popular to do this.
Right.
Right. I remember when I was out there.
even in Idaho,
Even in-
a lot of Dr. Ryan's problems came from Idaho.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
There wasn't, right now, everybody hates COVID.
Yeah.
Even the left, they hate it. Everybody hates COVID now.
Are you sure?
Well,
I saw someone wearing a mask at
it's-
Safeway still
it's
today.
safe to say bad things about COVID.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
It's safer.
Okay.
At the time,
The Overton window shifted on the COVID thing. Yeah.
our content, our information was
you're right.
bottlenecked.
Oh, yeah.
And you could not find anybody who was speaking publicly against either the vaccines or the understanding of COVID or the mask or anything like that. I remember searching the internet
I remember having Dr. Cole on and him being like, I think we need to get outside.
yes.
I think
Little vitamin D.
I think
Yeah.
we, I think
Little
we need,
vitamin
Yes.
D.
Like, hear
Yes.
me out. Hear me out. Vitamin D is good for you.
And,
Yeah,
and I remember him telling
that
me
was the first interview we had with him.
know.
You're bringing up vitamin D, and we're like,
vitamin
yeah.
and walking. He's like, and stop being stressed about everything because that's
Yeah.
going to mess up
Yeah.
your immune system.
Yeah.
Get out there and walk. And he said, my brown skinned brothers, make sure you take more vitamin D because it's harder for y'all to get. So I'm like, that man loves me. That man loves me.
I still do, Knox. Still love you.
I appreciate it. But what was so crazy was you couldn't find anybody at the time who was willing in the middle of this to be bold, not play politics, and tell you the truth so you can live in peace, right? Without worrying. And Doc, I'm probably going to say it a couple times in the show. I'm very, very thankful for you and what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to what God has in store for you, brother.
Well, remember, like we found Dr. J. Bhattacharya and we found Dr. Cole because we couldn't.
We were just scouring everything to find
Someone
doctors
with medical experience to talk to us about
Say
COVID.
that we weren't crazy because we were looking at all the information. It's like, okay, listen, we're no doctors, but the information's right here.
Yeah.
Right. So. It's nuts.
You know, Dr. Ryan Cole, I know you probably are not a regular listener of the show, so you wouldn't know this, but we had a show from 6 months ago where we were talking about COVID and Big Pharma with a gal who had exited Big Pharma. And that show 6 months ago, YouTube found it this last week and suspended us for 7 days. So we're actually suspended from YouTube right now, still from stuff we said about COVID 6 months ago.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is what we really need to battle in this new administration. Is look, free speech is foundational, and we have a First Amendment because we have a Second Amendment. You look what's happening in the United Kingdom under Starmer and what they're trying to do in Australia and restrict speech. If we're going to maintain, individuality, freedom, be able to worship how we want, where we want, celebrate Christmas, speak our mind, speak our soul, speak our heart, that censorship is what has to end.
Right.
And I love that Trump promised to go after him.
Right.
I hope he does.
Amen.
So
So
have
many
you
questions.
have you had a chance to dig into the full report, or have you just kind of know of the report? Like what? I mean, you're busy and all that stuff.
I know the report. Yeah, it's 557 pages. I'll be honest, I
Yeah.
haven't read all 557 pages. I've read the executive summaries, watched some of the same breakdowns of it you have.
Okay.
In the meeting I was at, one of my colleagues and I were talking about the report, and then we had a kind of a fun back and forth discussion, breaking down kind of the conclusions. And really, I think a lot of what the report does is show what they don't say. And I think reading between the lines is an important aspect of this report.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What they don't say?
Well, for example, did they throw EcoHealth Alliance under the bus? And what, did they finally say, of course, the virus looks like it was engineered and it was probably lab created? And they confessed the things that they censored all of us 4 years ago. But, they say, oh, and Peter Daszak's an evil dude with EcoHealth for funding, taking Fauci's money and funding Wuhan. What they ignore is the fact that Dr. Paul Barrick, down in North Carolina, he was the one doing all the tinkering. He created the spike protein. He gave it to Xi Jinping. He was collaborating with doctors at Harvard and up in Toronto, and I think a lab in the Netherlands. There were 4 other entities doing this gain of function study. And so they give Barrick a pass. His name doesn't even appear in this entire report. And they use this British guy, Daszak, with Ukrainian roots, I think, from, this middleman entity and say, oh, we'll never give EcoHealth Alliance funds again. Well, great. You found your fall guy, but you didn't go after the guy that created the problem, and you gave him a pass.
So Toby, when he just got into the studio and I gave him this report, and within not the report, but the executive summary, and within 2 minutes, he was just like, well, this seems like a bland report. and then I point out, I was like, well, number 5 in the summary was actually pretty good. And it says, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo participated in medical malpractice and publicly covered up the total number of nursing home fatalities in New York. And Toby read that. And he's like, well, that's a fall guy. That's not,
he's an easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
But do they name Michigan? Do they name Connecticut? Do they name the other Northeast states? No. And so again, I think you nailed it. There are a bunch of, they do name some names and use them as, okay, this person we can sacrifice. But the rest of it, we'll just kind of keep quiet. I think, it has inklings of incompleteness like the 9/11 report, inklings of the Warren report, inklings of a lot of historical congressional reports, and pats on their own back for, oh gosh, didn't we do such a great job on this, this, and this? And, certain things, they're congratulating themselves. And you have to consider that these, some of these physicians on this committee, one's a podiatrist. These guys aren't virologists. They're not, broadly trained virologist, immunologist. So, the intellectual acumen that went into some of the conclusions, you can say, okay, I can kind of give them a pass, but it's still pretty wimpy in terms of some of the conclusions. They don't bring out the considerable dangers and harms of the shot.
Right.
They don't really acknowledge the vaccine injured. There are millions of people harmed by this. And I think this is critically important. It's like I said, what's not there is probably more important than what is.
Why are y'all so negative?
It says
y'all are so. You guys don't understand. We're not supposed to even have this.
Yeah.
I thought we'd be somewhere in bunkers with shooting ammo out somewhere, and we got a report. I'm so happy. This is a great start for me. I like it.
And Knox, you bring up a great point. I think we, especially this time of year, we need to remember gratitude.
Yeah.
They did acknowledge many things. I would say it's probably maybe 70-30 in my personal opinion. 70% good, 30%. Yeah. So I think we're trending in the right direction. And we do, what they go through, like 25 meetings, 1 million pages of records, 30 different depositions. They did a fair amount of investigative work. They could have done more, certainly.
Yes.
But it's a step in the right direction. I will absolutely grant you that. And it's kind of an opening of the door to say, okay, there are things we should have been able to converse about since day one, obviously.
Facts.
But at least we can converse about it. And they've confessed, okay, look, these things didn't work. The masks, not a good idea. The 6 feet distance, not a good idea. The listening to a teachers union determining school policy, not a good idea. So there were a lot of mea culpas there saying, okay, we messed up. Let's learn from this. Let's go forward and, not repeat the mistakes of the past. So yeah, good point. Good point, Knox. I think gratitude that they're trending in the right direction. Yes.
When I think about biblical justice in this, to acknowledge a mistake is always important, but if your mistake killed lives, took millions of dollars away from people, there's real restitution that needs to happen. So in some sense, that to me is never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. The reconciliation there. I remember in our county alone, we talked about this before, in our county alone, an economic firm that we have in town, they ran the ripple effects of what happened when our city shut everything down. And by May, so they shut everything down in March, and by May, we had lost about 2,500 jobs in 2 months just in our county.
Yeah.
And we got a county of 50,000 people, maybe 60 or something like that. And we had lost 2,500 jobs. Like, where's the reconciliation there?
Yeah.
So but and then just thinking about my case too. Number 6 here says on the second page, it says the Constitution cannot be suspended in times of crisis.
That's good that they figured that out.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, think of George Washington. They had pandemics during the Revolutionary War, and when the Constitution was written, there was no pandemic exception saying, okay, when we have a pandemic, we'll just suspend things. No. It's foundational. Look, there will always be sick and poor among us. And that gives us, in the realms of what we do, always a job to do in terms of serving humanity.
Sorry, please finish.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you wrote this report, what 5 things you'd want to see in it?
I would want to see, we tried to do something to help. We built a car that didn't work, and we will never sell that car again.
Yes, yes. Come on now, preach now.
And it's the Model V, just to not get you off of YouTube.
Too late.
So, the other thing that they don't acknowledge, they don't talk about natural immunity. And if you've had a disease, you don't need the Model V. And early, the other thing that was ignored here, what most of us got attacked for, just the whole construct of early treatment. Whenever there's a new pathogen of some sort, focus on what you can treat it with as quickly as possible. And they, natural immunity, the V, the treatments. And then, of course, they got right. No, we shouldn't lock down. No, we shouldn't mask. No, we shouldn't, basically what Dr. J said, Great Barrington Declaration, let's protect the elderly. So they do acknowledge some of his principles here. And I think, again, I'd probably give them a C+ on what they did here. It's a passing grade. And I think some of those major points, the hardest thing for anyone to say in life is, okay, I was wrong. And because then you do have to make amends. Like you said, Gabe, it's hard to ever envision that might happen here. But part of the repentance process is saying you're not going to do it again.
Right.
And they do congratulate themselves and say Operation Warp Speed was a success.
Right.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's not contrition.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a mixed bag, but it's a trend in the right direction in the sense that a lot more people are awake. And like we were chit-chatting, I don't care if you're team red, team blue, team purple, it doesn't matter. This is about humanity. And speaking CrossPolitic across the aisles, this is basically a fact of the matter that, okay, things were done incorrectly, things were learned, at least we're learning, let's grow from it. And going forward, obviously not repeat the mistakes. But if you leave out certain things, then you kind of leave yourself wiggle room to perhaps repeat certain things as well.
I didn't say they had any answers. I agree with you, everything you just said, Doc. Because you're right.
Warp speed.
Yeah, I mean, it's
crazy.
It's one thing to see that you made. I felt like they came just close enough to the line where we don't have to prosecute anybody. Right?
Or at least that's what they're hoping.
I think that's right. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, in this whole construct of preemptive pardons for certain people is almost a confession that what they did was criminal. So
that's right.
Yeah. I think, fair point, Knox, on not being.
There's a huge butt coming.
Complete
grumpy
Grinches. I think you were trying to call us Grinches.
I mean, no.
But the thing that worries me though is there's a lot of talk about preparing for the next one.
Yes. Let's go there. Please, let's go there.
And it really makes me nervous because I'm like, wait, next what? Because what's not been very clearly answered here is where did it come from, what caused it, and what was it? Like even that is not very clearly defined. Yeah. And then in the middle of that, congratulating themselves for Operation Warp Speed. And then they close out with these underlined sections. I've taken, this will help the United States and the world predict the next pandemic, prepare for the next pandemic, protect ourselves from the next pandemic, and hopefully prevent the next pandemic. And I'm like, that just makes me really, really nervous. Dr. Cole talked me down off the edge.
I wish I could, but I think that's a valid concern. And here's why. was there truly a real pandemic statistically? And if you look at a lot of nations, the death rate in 2020 during the Wuhan Alpha Delta strains, not till Delta hit did we really see an uptick, but by then the shots had already rolled out. Yeah. And so you have to, if you look at some of the data sets from our world and data and whatnot, in 2020, it was maybe a slight bump up like a bad flu season. So, in nature, viruses generally don't jump from an animal to a person and spread person to person. It's pretty uncommon. And most viral outbreaks are local and then confined. So the pattern of this one was human caused in the sense that it was engineered and the distribution pattern didn't make sense. So what they're telling you there is, hey, we're still doing gain of function. We're tinkering with a bunch of the other viruses. And just in case we mess up again, like happens in biosafety lab with leaks about 200 times a year in different biosafety labs, they're trying to, it's kind of a CYA procedure. They're saying there's a chance some of this stuff we shouldn't be working on, but we are working on, could escape and cause another problem. And there's this entire pandemic industry. This is the other unfortunate aspect of this, is it's this public-private partnership, which is truly fascism, which has turned into this mega industry. Really, that's the biggest problem, is this partnering with private industry and thinking that they're not going to be self-interested in this process. Right. And we lost that good Samaritan sense of, if this was truly a pandemic, everybody would have, rolled up their sleeves, worked together, done it all for free, like many of us did, and said, okay, we got through it, let's move on with life. But instead, it turned into this giant industry. And so I wish I could talk you off that ledge, but there are some bad actors still out there getting a lot of funding.
I'm going to talk you off the edge.
Okay.
A little bit. I'm going to try.
Okay.
Here's my attempt. Here's the way I'm reading this. I don't think anybody should look at this and say, oh, this is what we've learned. I think we should look at this and ask the question, what have we learned from this? I think we should say we learned that we haven't been good stewards of our own health. I think we've learned that we've trusted our institutions more than we should have. I think we've learned that we haven't sent the right people to the institutions that need to be there. I think that we've learned that we don't even understand that our Constitution wasn't supposed to be suspended, because we wouldn't have had the government doing it if the people weren't going to allow it. I think we have to look at this and be like, oh, okay.
We need to take more responsibility.
I think this whole thing is a letter to say, so what did you learn? Right. I don't expect we think because we have some wins, I believe, politically with Trump and a few other things, that's the fact that we have RFK now who's moved from one party to the, that's crazy. Nobody saw that coming. 2016. Nobody saw that coming, right? No. Yeah. And the fact that we have this new coalition, there's a lot of things that COVID did that we are learning. The whole health industry right now is scared, because people are waking up to the responsibility that they need to be the governors of their own health. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the fact that our institutions aren't going to tell us those things because they're not supposed to. Yeah. I think we're learning the limitations of our institutions, and trying to get some sort of validation that they've learned it too is almost going to be impossible. I just want them to see that they've crossed somewhat of a line, and that's fine. But we're not going there again, right? And so I'm not looking at this. I'm looking at what's coming down the pike after January 20th to say, this is what we've learned. And this is what we're going to do to make sure that whatever y'all think about Project War, we ain't doing that again. No, we want the right people in the places. We want Jay there. We want Dr. Cole there. And that's what we learned. Yeah. we ain't doing this.
Can I piggyback on that?
Because go ahead.
You're absolutely right. And I like to joke, look, the best doctor you'll ever meet is here right now. And it's not me, it's you. Look in the mirror. And this is what we learned from this, is you will always be your own best doctor. You know your body better than your doctor ever will. You live in it. You're blessed with that vessel, and you get this temple to either take care of or desecrate. But it gives America a wake-up call to clean their temple, clean out their own house. Make sure the vessel is pure. And it's a gift that we've been given. Are we taking care of it? Yeah. And I think with this Make America Healthy Again movement, and like I said earlier, MOHA, Make Ourselves Healthy Again, to look in the mirror and have this new opportunity of say, okay, there are a lot of things that they didn't tell us. Well, we've all learned a lot since then. Yeah. And a lot of people have become better scientists than they ever were in high school. And so we now have this great opportunity to reflect and say, okay, we as a country obviously aren't, we spend the most money, but we're like number 40 something in terms of health outcomes. Now we can say, wait, why are we wasting all this money when there's some simple things we can do individually to improve our individual health in our lives? So I think this is it has been a wake-up call. And our conclusions, do you have to be prepared? Certainly. I mean, be a good Boy Scout, like back in the day when Boy Scouts were boys or whatever. But just that be prepared concept is a great idea. And it's not that, government shouldn't have some plan going forward, but the degree to which their hyper planning is concerning. But going back to that individual level, I love that Knox brings that up, because we do have that opportunity to say, all right, if you didn't learn something from these last 4 years, well, bad on you, because most of us did. Yeah. And we're not going to be dependent on the government to come to the rescue. They're not going to be charging on our horses as the cavalry. We're not dependent on them. I mean, it starts with the individual. And I think that's the difference between a physician, is the physician has that sacred Hippocratic oath with the patient, or at least should have. Right. And public health is more communal. And the mindsets are different. It's how much good can we do with a minimum of harm, where that one-on-one doctor-patient relationship should always be for the good. And, trying to do that risk benefit. But public health, I joke now that we live in an era of wealth and wellness instead of health and wellness. Yeah. We need to return to that health and wellness, but it starts with the individual. And I love you that you brought that up, Knox. That's a great construct.
And you think about like both parties, both Democrat and Republican parties, I mean, generally are hopefully were going the same direction. They were just adding to the bureaucracy for decades. That's whatever, true. Right? Maybe Democrats would add more during their terms and Republicans would add less or whatever. I don't even know if I agree with that. Right? Yeah, it's debatable. Yeah. TSA, Department of Education, all that stuff under Bush.
Different areas, maybe.
Yeah. But one thing COVID did, hopefully for the masses, it seems like it did, is it made us, I think, rethink how we think about government. And I think it made people also just start thinking more, I need to be more responsible for my family and myself. Local communities be more responsible for their local city, that kind of thing. And of course, in the church, we've been praying for Reformation revival in the church for, 40 years here. And in Hebrews, it says, that God shakes things, so the things that remain will remain. And a lot of the church was shaken during COVID. So COVID was, probably the biggest thing they didn't write about is how healthy it was for the church, how good it was for us, and hopefully.
That's a really good point, Gabe.
How it made me lose my thought when you commented.
It was so good. There's nothing else better than what you just.
It was.
Usually, in old churches, they tell you like when they say amen, that means go that direction.
Yeah, amen.
Go. That's the way. That's the way.
But you think about we don't want it to stop. This is the history of Christians on this earth, going back to the Old Testament, is when you kind of woke up, when you kind of repented, when things started getting good because God blessed you for that repentance, that's when you forgot God again. I hope, we think at least 2 years under Trump, we're probably going to have some good freedoms. At least 2 years, hopefully 4 years, and hopefully another 8 years under J.D. Vance. So we could potentially have 12 years potentially. That's a real scenario.
You have some faith there, boy.
I'm post-mill.
Look at some 12 years.
But now who's the pessimist?
I know, right?
I remember. Yeah, exactly.
I know. Lord, help my unbelief.
But I remember when George Bush got elected against Gore, coming off the Bill Clinton administration.
Yeah.
I remember all my Christian friends around me were like, "Oh, that's a relief. Our boy got elected." Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't want that to happen under Trump starting January 20th. And then if things get good, let's say the economy gets untangled, interest rates drop, it's like things start getting better. What's the church going to do? Are they going to keep, are they going to feel like right now, at least under Biden, I think the church kind of felt like, oh, we need repentance. We need Reformation revival to some extent, not mega churches. I think you're right. None of that.
Yeah.
I think there was a feeling of that. And now it's like they don't feel pinched anymore. What's going to happen?
Well, I think the one thing that we have different than we have with Bush and Clinton is that we just did have COVID. We had 2020.
That's true.
And the thing that made it really interesting is that God, in his kindness, connected some dots that I don't know if they would have been connected, but it was, you have this whatever pandemic thing and the lockdowns and all of that. So you have this government overreach. And then right at the exact same time, you had the BLM riots.
Yeah.
And the George Floyd
contrast
death. And so you have like, you're not allowed to do anything. But then as soon as they were marching in the streets, there was no 6 foot distancing.
Yeah.
There was nobody checking for masks.
Yeah.
It was suddenly like, oh, but this thing is really important.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's, and some of us had already been pointing out, like, but the churches have to be closed, but the porn shops and the pot shops and the abortion clinics, like they're open. Like
and Jonathan Lehman's out there with Black Lives Matter.
Right. But so like in God's kindness and his providence, he allowed some of these things to be connected, whereas like, okay, something really weird is going on where and I think right after that, in the aftermath of all of that, has been the whole the transing the kids stuff with these hospitals doing trans surgeries and all the rest of it, where it's like, okay, there's like a weird agenda going on that we didn't sign up for.
Yeah.
And I think that God's allowed a big curtain to be pulled back.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Gabe, completely. Like, we've got to be on our guard. We got to be careful, absolutely, not to rest on our laurels just because God gives us a minor
breathing room or
something. A little different.
Yeah.
But I also think this, like, a whole bunch of us just went through this craziness. You got arrested. Dr. Cole's been persecuted.
Still being persecuted.
Yeah.
They went out. They tried to assassinate Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Twice.
Yeah. I mean,
And did you hear the Secret Service agent was 5 feet from the second guy, shot at him like 6 times and missed all 6 times?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So
that was on.
That's another
reported,
show.
That was on Fox.
That's a whole nother show.
So, but my point though is I think we all have this like really, really fresh. And I know that, if the Old Testament tells us anything, of course it tells like the people of Israel, they get onto the other side of the Red Sea, they have a worship service and they're complaining
3 days later.
3 days later. So, I mean, we are capable of forgetting. We're absolutely capable of forgetting, but I do hope that maybe with this being so fresh and so raw in all these different places, we need to get healthy again. Yeah. But we also need to get some justice again.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need the government.
Pro-lifers.
We need to save lives again. We need to protect children. I mean, there's all these areas again that I hope that maybe it's all kind of fresh and raw and keeps us on our toes.
And I'd say to add to that, I remember, when we started CrossPolitic in 2016, all of a sudden my life became a lot about like reading news articles, because we need to know the news and we need to talk about the Bible, how the Bible applies to this moment, this week. Yeah. And then I remember after about a year or two of doing that, maybe 17 or 18, we started talking about this where it's like, man, I don't really trust a lot of what I'm reading in these news articles.
Sure.
And then COVID hit and I was like, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust any journalist. That it really just pulled the rug or the blinders off my eyes, whatever.
The rug off your eyes.
The rug under me, whatever. Blinders, rugs,
Blinders
goggles,
came off of his feet while he was...
The drunk goggles came off, whatever.
Your metaphors.
I know, they're all over. And it really just, like, I didn't trust any journalist after that, including like Fox and conservative journalism, because no one was hitting it well and honestly at all.
Right.
And then
that iconic picture of that, the CNN reporter saying the protests are mostly peaceful.
Yeah, exactly.
With
the fire in the background.
With the buildings in
just
flames.
redefined peace.
Yeah, and you're like, that is a perfect picture of our mainstream media.
Yeah, and then you had the same thing going on at the same time with the Russia collusion stuff.
Sure.
They, FBI was lying, the media was lying about Russia collusion. Pencil neck Adam Schiff was out there, kept saying, "Oh, we got the Kraken. We're going to be releasing this soon about all Trump's connections to Russia." All that stuff. Then you had a Hunter Biden laptop lie. You had what was it? 50s, 60s top U.S. officials they were former CIA officials. What are saying the Hunter Biden laptops are fake. So all that stuff. It just like God pulled the rug out from under all of us about who to trust.
Right.
And now I hope, and I think there's a lot of non-Christians out there a lot of atheists, non-Christian. I mean, this is where I think we're getting like, you know, the conversations around like, you know, what you know, Christian nationalism with who's the atheist in Britain?
Not Hitchens.
Dawkins.
Yeah.
Dawkins, you know, he basically now confessing I'm a cultural Christian now. And I think a lot of that's coming because they don't know who to trust anymore.
Right.
No.
But they're like the old Christianity that kind of built Britain.
But I want to be able to sing old, you know, Christmas hymns.
Yeah.
And I don't want all the cathedrals turning into mosques.
Yeah.
Dr. Cole, I know you have to run, and I don't want to take your time, but there's two things I really want to hit with you that came up. You were the first person that I heard talk about the cancerous potential effects of the vaccines. I don't mind saying it. I mean, we already off YouTube. And so I want to talk about kind of what's developed since, you know, your first discoveries of that. We talk about a little bit more and kind of where things are, because we might have a whole different type of problem on our hands that we've made for ourselves that we don't even know about yet. And I want to get some details on that. But I want to, before that, you talked about the fact that this really wasn't a real pandemic. We kind of made one. And when I talk to people like that, one of the things they always push back to me is like, but look at all the deaths. We had so many deaths. So then what was
millions worldwide?
We have all these deaths. How could you not consider this a pandemic when you have so many people still dying? And so what is the response to help somebody see?
It says that in the report, leaving millions dead and millions more.
Yeah. I mean, it's even, exactly.
What did they die from?
Yeah. So how do you,
with or
what
from?
Did they die from?
Yeah.
With or from?
Say that
with
again.
or from.
Yeah. Okay.
With or from. And so much of the death in America was from the poor interventions we had. The run death is near, the ventilators. You know, the ventilators were not very necessary, and then people on ventilators weren't covered with antibiotics. You look at countries that, you know, they had similar case rates as us, but had far lower death rates because they were less interventional. And so we had a lot of physician-caused death, unfortunately. I think the hospital was a scary place to go. And, you know, were there deaths? Yeah, I you know, my heart goes out to anybody that lost a loved one. But then the deaths actually went up after the rollout of the shot and the harms that started. And then all the studies that come out, of course, they don't talk about the shot. And they don't do a comparative of the unvax versus the vax and those death rates after. And all the immunologic things we've talked about on other shows, you know, they don't talk about that. And you can't find what you don't look for. And so they're certainly not going to do the self-incriminating studies. I mean, once we have the baton in Washington and can direct the orchestra, I think a bunch of us are going to start going and doing those look-back studies and actually find the truth that's been buried. But, you know, to the sadder point, Knox, I think you're right. And this is where the statistics are bearing out. And I wish I were wrong, but if you go into the CDC Wonder data set, just about every age group, that cancer curve is inflecting upward. And it all started in 2021. There's a former naval intelligence officer called the ethical skeptic. I can't say who the person is, but goes into a lot of the government data sets. And if you follow this person, the ethical skeptic, on X or go to his website, he's a phenomenal data aggregator, really intelligent guy. And you can look at those cancer curves. And I mean, look, our spending on cancer since 2021 is up 20%.
Goodness.
That tells you something right there. Call an oncologist and see what their average weight was, you know, before the pandemic, see what their average weight is right now. There's just so many signs that point to it, but the tissue itself, here's the biggest problem. So I've been working on a cancer project with a genetics researcher, Kevin McKernan, in Boston. He's already demonstrated that this Pfizer was contaminated with DNA, that it had a green monkey kidney virus in it, SV40. We've found that, and that was known to cause solid tumor cancers from the polio shots way back when. And we've identified this within post-Pfizer vaccinated individuals now, and it's replicating. And it's a known carcinogenic viral sequence.
Wow.
And so was I right? I didn't want to be. Are the data bearing out and showing what I said? Sadly, yes. And are we still going to continue to see this for several years to come? Yes, we are, because this was never a vaccine. A rose by any other name is still a rose. A genetic therapy by any other name is still a gene therapy. And, you know, Moderna, if you look at their application with the Security Exchange Commission back in spring of 2020, it fits the definition of FDA's definition of a gene therapy, period. And they didn't look at all those things they were supposed to for a gene therapy in terms of reproductive toxicity, cancer potential, mutations. And what we're finding out now is the sad sad effect of giving a large population a gene therapy. So we're seeing that. I think I guess kind of the optimistic lesson here is we had a pandemic plan before COVID hit, and they threw everything out the window and went with this crazy cobbled together lockdown Chinese model, blah, blah, blah. If we go back to, and in this report, they should have said, hey, we did it all wrong. We'll go back to the laws that were actually on the books and the way we were supposed to handle a pandemic. That mea culpa, I think, would go a lot farther than kind of some of the gaslighting we've seen. Sadly, I don't want to be right, but we have a lot more autoimmune disease now. Yes, the cancer rates are continuing to tick upward at rates that are pretty concerning. And it's not just me; it's data sets out of the U.S., it's data sets out of England, data sets out of Australia, New Zealand, wherever we can dig into those data sets. They're all showing the same pattern. And there's one thing you can point to, and these shots are contaminated with DNA, which, I mean, the CEO of Moderna said, look, if you're going to make an mRNA product, make sure you don't leave any residual DNA behind because it can cause mutation and it could cause cancer. That's in his own patents. And he's the CEO of Moderna. He knew that.
Wow.
And lo and behold, there it is, contaminating these products.
So I have a friend just recently who has a family, their family members, another sister in the family. Her and her family did the whole vax thing, did the whole scheduling thing for all their whole family, their kids included, and she has diabetes now. Skinny woman, healthy. Her daughter has diabetes, and the son got testicular cancer, a rare form of. He's young. He's I think 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
And apparently, so two things here is I think there's a connection between the the gene therapy and diabetes too in this.
There is.
What?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I've gotten a lot of reports, and again, it's an autoimmune condition. These shots make proteins other than the spike protein. They make Frankenstein proteins that cause your body to make all sorts of weird antibodies your body shouldn't be making, and a lot of these antibodies look at your tissues and say, I don't know what I'm supposed to bind to, but this looks like something good. So your body starts attacking itself.
Wow.
And so we're seeing significant, everybody hears about the heart inflammation, which is tragic.
Right.
Most people don't hear about the strokes, the neurologic conditions, but especially the autoimmune conditions. And so, in this season of cheer and the holidays, I think we need to be grateful for those of us that, are still healthy and haven't been harmed, but we need to have a heart of compassion for those who have been. And I think we need to remember that we are, a community, and we are, this great family, and this season of spirit and giving, give of ourselves to those who are in need, and give them time, give them love, give them compassion, because there are a lot of things we're still going to see, and the world still needs good people helping. And so I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I want to end on this positive note. It's scientific fact what we're seeing, but at the same time, we can all try to do something to help those who have needs in this world, and not set aside those people were doing what they thought was the right thing, and now they're harmed. And so we've got to give them love and grace and kindness, and help them be seen. So that the research, the funding that should have been done now, because of a report like this, we can say, well, now maybe we should look forward and see what we can do to help from some of the mistakes that were committed. So I think there is a silver lining here.
I'm praying. Y'all better pray for me, because maybe y'all forgot, but remember they was walking past you like, don't come close to me. You ain't been vaccinated. You can't get on this plane. You can't come in the front door.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to treat them like that. I just think maybe we should remind people. Some of us tried to tell your crazy self not to do this. Come on in here. Let me hug on you now. I'm just saying, because it's funny, because now things have switched in such a weird way. I remember after people started getting the vaccine, there were shops that were saying, listen, people who are coming in here vaccinated, they're shedding. And so we can't have them come in here anymore, because people who have not, it's rubbing off on women. Their cycles are changing. Everything's going weird. And now, and people aren't reading about it because we're not in the middle, but this is still happening, where people who are vaccinated are going into environments and everybody is getting something. It's weird. I don't even know. The shedding is still happening, and it's affecting people's immune system, even though they have never gotten vaccinated. Yeah. And so it's this weird thing where it's like, have you been vaccinated? You have. Oh, I love you, but
you're gonna have to stand 6 feet away.
I'm gonna need some distance.
You gotta wear a mask.
I would never. But the truth is that unfortunately, what wasn't a threat now has become a real threat, right? Like it wasn't a threat before. Go ahead, Doc.
Can I make it worse for you?
Oh no.
Sure. Why not?
Happy.
Well, the world needs to know about this. I don't know if you're aware of the self-amplifying RNA products that are being experimented on now. And this not only has the genetic code, but it also has its own little factory to make the zipper go back and forth to make copies. This is taken from an Eastern equine encephalitis virus, and they use that as the shell and have lipid nanoparticles that are dangerous to the body. I was in Japan a couple months ago because they're rolling it out for COVID there for variants that are extinct, but they're still doing it anyway. They don't know whether it's going to cause even more shedding, which it should. Spread human to human, potentially human to animal, animal to human, recombine with viruses in nature. It could be a third atomic bomb. But guess what? They just enrolled a series approved by our FDA in California. The FDA said, hey, Arcturus, it's a company in San Diego. I think it's an exceedingly dangerous construct. But they're like, hey, we're enrolling 200 people. And it's like you seed a crystal and the crystal keeps growing and growing and growing. No off switch. Nobody knows when it turns off. Nobody knows how long it lasts. Nobody knows how much it shed. And like it said, it has its own little power plant plugged into the coded sequence. So this is happening now in America. There should be an international outcry. Most people in Japan are like, even the nursing home said, we're not giving that to our people. So at least the people are standing up. And these companies are like, if you speak against our product, we're going to put you in jail and sue you for speaking out. And we're like, no, we're here, a bunch of us from around the world to stop you guys doing this in Japan, just to come home a couple of weeks later. And they're like, hey, we're doing a bird flu trial with a self-amplifying RNA right here in America. And I'm like, oh, have we lost our minds or what?
Yeah. Wow.
Did you tell JFK yet? RFK? Did you tell RFK? He needs to know this.
Here, we got to get through 35 more days. We have to get him confirmed. Yeah. It's a man, again, does he share all the same politics we've all had? Probably not. Am I good friends with him? Yeah, I am. Yeah. And is he a man that is a very changed man that wants to leave a legacy for the children of this world? Yes, he does. Yeah. And is he going to do things morally and ethically and transparently? Yes, he is. Yeah. And like him or not, I personally do like him because I know him well as an individual. He and Jay Bhattacharya and any others who he happens to select on those teams, look, we're going in. Trust in life, I say this is a very simple equation. It's truth plus transparency. Yeah. And we're going to go in, we're going to tell the truth, and we're going to be transparent. So America will trust again, and we can be healthy again. But not with games like, this self-amplifying stuff going on. This is where we all need to work together to stop the captured agencies and the corruption and put these good people in there that are going to say, look, we're going to do things morally, ethically, and by the book. Yeah. And we're not going to take bribes or payoffs, and we're going to make America healthy again because we're not going to poison the people and poison the children.
That's good. Yeah.
Science without Jesus is wicked.
Yeah. Doc, how can people follow you and see what you have going on and pay attention to where you're at?
Okay. The letter R as in Ryan, rcolemd.com. And then I'm on X at drcole12. And that's kind of where I've been lately. And I've been posting some of the videos at the different conferences I've presented at onto the webpage. The missus has helped catch that up recently for me, thankfully. Yeah. I was just 3 countries, 12 cities in the last 8 weeks, and finally got to be home for Thanksgiving, which was lovely. And now I'm on the road again. But, again, just trying to be a science whisperer, help people understand so they can take charge of their own lives, learn from, what we've gone through, not be gaslit, put their faith not in the flesh of man, put not their faith in a false science and a false God, but, do things more important and redirect their lives in positive directions. So, that's out here doing my little part.
Well, we sure appreciate you. Christmas is time for decking the halls, singing jingle bells, feasting on cookies, and getting yourself a Fight Laugh Feast membership. Get
Ooh.
a library of hard-hitting theology, CrossPolitic backstage interviews, all Fight Laugh Feast conference talks, courses with David Bonson, Doug and Nancy Wilson, exclusive merch, and much more. Pub, club, memberships at the silver level or above get 15% off through the end of December. There's nothing that says Merry Christmas quite like a Fight
Nothing.
Laugh
Buying
Feast.
us a club.
Not nothing. Not one single thing.
Yeah, it helps us keep doing what we're doing, and we really appreciate you. Head to fightlaughfeast.com. Use the code Mary15, Mary15 when signing up. That's fightlaughfeast.com, code Mary15.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cole. Appreciate you. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you a bunch of kids. And if you have those kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.